It was barely 8:30 when Dr. Alyssa Greene stepped out of her black sedan in front of the glass tower on Lexington Avenue. She didn't need an escort or a crowd waiting with balloons. She'd spent her entire career proving that quiet arrivals can shake the tallest buildings. The lobby of Hamilton and Reed Consulting was polished marble and old habits, both a little too shiny, both hiding cracks. Behind the front desk, a receptionist glanced up, gave Alyssa a professional smile that never reached her eyes, and said, "Morning, ma'am. The executives aren't in yet. You can wait outside until they get here." Outside, in October wind. For a heartbeat, Alyssa just looked at her. Not angry, just curious, the way a teacher looks at a student who's sure of the wrong answer. "I have an appointment with the board," Alyssa said, voice even warm. The receptionist's nails clicked against her keyboard. They usually meet with guests upstairs. Security'll call you when they're ready." Then, already turning back to her screen, she added under her breath, "We get a lot of people claiming that." Alyssa smiled faintly. "All right, I'll wait." She stepped aside, heels soft against the stone floor. Across the lobby, two junior analysts whispered, "Poor lady's been standing there 15 minutes already. She probably got lost. You know how visitors get." Neither of them noticed the CEO badge tucked inside Alyssa's blazer pocket or the tiny gold initials, H&R, engraved on the edge. A guard approached, tall, kind-faced, mid-50s, name tag read Eddie J. He gave a little nod. "Ma'am, you sure you're in the right building? This one's mostly corporate access." Alyssa returned the nod. "I'm exactly where I need to be." Something in her tone made Eddie hesitate. He tipped his cap. "Well, all right then, coffee's fresh if you want a cup." She thanked him and took a seat near the window. Outside, the city was waking up. Yellow cabs, horns, the hum of people chasing clocks. Inside, time moved slower. Alyssa watched the reflection of the lobby glass, seeing herself the way they saw her, a middle-aged black woman in a tailored gray coat, hair pulled neat, posture calm. No flash, no entourage. And in this building, that was enough to make people guess wrong. She thought of her grandmother, a schoolteacher who used to say, "Baby, when folks tell you to wait outside, that just means they're not ready for your kind of inside yet." Alyssa had laughed back then. Now it sounded like strategy. A young intern carrying folders rushed by and nearly tripped. "Whoa, sorry, ma'am." "No harm done," Alyssa said. "Breathe, you'll make it to Friday." The girl laughed nervously, not realizing she'd just spoken to the woman who signed every payroll check in that building. Minutes passed. The receptionist glanced up again, clearly annoyed that Alyssa was still there. "Ma'am, you really can't stay in the lobby, policy." "Of course," Alyssa replied, rising smoothly. "I wouldn't want to break policy." She walked toward the revolving doors, but stopped beside the corporate directory, names etched in brass. Her own name sat at the top, newly installed that very morning. Dr. Alyssa Greene, Chief Executive Officer. The receptionist hadn't looked closely enough to notice. Alyssa traced the engraved letters lightly with her finger, a smile playing at the corner of her mouth. They'll see soon enough, she thought. Just then, the elevator chimed. A cluster of managers in dark suits hurried out, voices booming about quarterly numbers. The receptionist straightened, suddenly attentive. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson. Your guest is waiting outside." One of the men frowned. "Guest?" She nodded toward the window. "Woman in the gray coat." He glanced, shrugged, never seen her. They marched past without another word. Alyssa watched them disappear into the conference wing, every step of their confidence echoing through the lobby. It wasn't anger that she felt. It was data, one more entry in the lifelong study of how people see what they expect and miss what's real. Eddie, the guard, came over again. "Everything okay, ma'am?" "Everything's fine," she said, standing. "I think it's time they learned who's been waiting outside." He chuckled softly. Something tells me they're about to get schooled. Alyssa gave a polite nod and headed toward the elevators. Her reflection in the mirror-polished doors looked back at her calm, composed, unstoppable. The digital display blinked board level, authorized access only. She swiped her card, the panel lit green, authorized. Behind her, the receptionist's phone slipped from her hand and hit the desk with a soft thud. "Wait, she's authorized," she whispered. Eddie just smiled, told you she was right where she needed to be. As the elevator doors closed, Alyssa exhaled once, steady, deliberate, the kind of breath people take right before rewriting the rules. The elevator rose in silence, its soft hum almost like a drumbeat under Alyssa's calm breathing. When the doors opened, the top floor of Hamilton and Reed stretched out before her, glass walls, white marble, and the faint smell of old money and new coffee. She'd walked these halls before, but always as the consultant, the fixer, the one called in when numbers bled red. Now she was the one at the head of the table. The board meeting wasn't scheduled to start for another 20 minutes. So Alyssa decided to wait, not because she had to, but because she wanted to watch how people behaved before they knew who was watching. She stepped into the corner lounge overlooking downtown. Through the glass, the city glittered with mid-morning light, taxis crawling like yellow ants. Below, she could still see the street where she'd started 20 years earlier, selling software updates door to door with a second-hand laptop and a stubborn belief that professionalism could be armor. Footsteps clicked behind her. "Ma'am, this floor's restricted," said a young man in a fitted suit, his voice polite but firm. "I know," Alyssa replied. He frowned. "Then you understand why I'm asking how you got up here." Alyssa turned, meeting his eyes without tension. "Elevator." The young man shifted. "Right, of course." He tried to laugh, failed, and added, "Just, protocol." "Always important," she said softly. "Tell me, do you follow protocol with everyone, or just people who don't look like they own the place?" He opened his mouth, then closed it again, realizing he had no graceful exit. "Enjoy your day," Alyssa said, letting him off the hook. When he left, she looked around the floor. Photos of past CEOs, all gray-haired and pale, smiling beside trophies and plaques. The company had changed logos 3 times, but not its reflection. That was why she was here. A secretary approached next, carrying folders. "Good morning, are you with catering?" Alyssa almost laughed. "No, not today." "Oh, sorry. We're expecting refreshments for the executive breakfast." Alyssa nodded toward the conference room. "I think the executives will want something stronger than coffee this morning." The secretary blinked, puzzled, but hurried off. She sat at the head of the table, temporarily invisible, intentionally silent. Through the glass walls, she could see the senior partners gathering in clusters, trading weekend stories about golf scores and stock tips. Every laugh sounded rehearsed, every handshake looked like an alibi. She took out her tablet, opened the quarterly report, and waited. The receptionist downstairs had sent an email. "Unknown visitor reached executive level. Possible security concern." The message pinged on the internal network, and within seconds, 3 managers were on their way up. Alyssa smiled. "Let's see how they handle this concern." The door swung open. A short, red-faced man led the group. "Excuse me, ma'am, this area's off limits." She looked up calm. "Is it?" "Yes, ma'am. Only board members and the CEO are allowed before session." Alyssa folded her hands. "Good to know. Please have a seat." He frowned. "I'm sorry, who are you again?" She didn't answer right away, only motioned toward the conference chairs. "Humor me, sit." Something in her tone made them obey. They sat, 3 senior managers, straightening their ties like schoolboys. Alyssa looked at each one in turn. "Gentlemen, if a woman walked in wearing confidence instead of a name tag, how long would it take before you asked who she was instead of assuming who she was?" No one answered. She tapped the tablet, and the screen at the end of the table came alive with the company logo. Her name appeared beneath it, Dr. Alyssa Greene, Chief Executive Officer. The silence that followed was thick enough to stir the air. The red-faced man cleared his throat. Dr. Greene, we weren't aware you'd arrived. You were aware someone had arrived, she corrected gently. You just decided she didn't belong. He swallowed hard. Our apologies. Alyssa nodded once, accepted, but apologies don't fix culture, behavior does. She rose, walking to the window again. Tell me, Mr. Thompson, when was the last time this company promoted a woman of color to a senior post? He hesitated. I'd have to check the records. Don't bother, I already did. The younger manager, maybe late 30s, spoke up. Dr. Greene, if you don't mind my asking, why didn't you introduce yourself downstairs? Alyssa turned, half smiling. Because I needed to see the company I'm leading exactly as it is, not the version that stands up straighter when the CEO walks in. He nodded slowly, understanding dawning. Fair enough, he said. Alyssa looked around the room again. This isn't about embarrassment, she said. It's about awareness. I waited in that lobby to remind myself what ordinary visitors experience here, and it reminded me of why Hamilton and Reed called me in the first place, to change the temperature, not the thermostat. The men exchanged glances, unsure whether to speak. Alyssa continued, her tone even but firm. Starting today, every level of this company, from reception to boardroom, will take part in a new initiative. Respect isn't optional, it's measurable. She tapped her tablet again. A slide appeared, the Human First program. Details will come later, she said. For now, I'd appreciate if someone brought that receptionist a warm drink. It's cold outside. The red-faced man rose quickly. Right away, ma'am, Dr. Greene. She smiled. Good. And next time someone walks through those doors, greet them like they could be signing your next paycheck, because one day they might. By the time the full board assembled, word had spread through the building. The new CEO was already here, and she'd seen everything. The conference room filled with that uneasy energy only corporate veterans recognize. The shuffle of chairs, the coughs that hide nerves, the sound of men used to talking first and listening later. Alyssa entered without announcement. No entourage, no speech. Just the quiet click of heels and a confidence that carried its own introduction. She placed her leather folder on the table and said simply, "Let's begin." Slides appeared behind her, graphs, projections, red and green bars, but the numbers weren't what held their attention. It was the calm in her voice, the precision of someone who didn't need to raise it to be heard. Before we talk strategy, she said, I'd like to address something smaller than revenue but bigger than profit, how we treat people. A few eyes dropped to the table. I came through the front door this morning. No red carpet, no memo announcing my arrival. And in that 15-minute wait, I learned more about our company culture than any report could tell me. Someone muttered, "We'll speak with staff immediately." Alyssa shook her head. No, we'll learn from them, because if leadership doesn't listen, policy is just wallpaper. She told them calmly what had happened downstairs, the polite dismissal, the sideways looks, the assumptions that followed. Not once did she name anyone. She didn't need to. The story was mirror enough. Then she added, when I accepted this position, I promised the board one thing. I'd make Hamilton and Reed a place where dignity isn't determined by dress code or color. Today's reminder came sooner than expected. The room was silent. Even the projector fan seemed to hush itself. At the end of the table, Mr. Thompson finally spoke. Dr. Greene, you've made your point, but you should know this firm has always prided itself on professionalism. Alyssa met his eyes. And professionalism, she said evenly, starts with perception. When perception fails, so does pride. She clicked the remote again. A new slide appeared. Initiative 1, Respect in Action, Immediate Implementation. We're not drafting memos, she continued. We are changing habits. Every department head will attend the same onboarding session as entry-level hires. Same room, same chairs, same coffee, rank stays at the door. Gasps, a few half smiles from the younger staff. She closed the folder. Gentlemen, ladies, the reveal isn't that I'm your CEO. The reveal is what kind of company we're about to become. By noon, the news had trickled through every floor. Assistants whispered near elevators. Analysts peeked over cubicles. The new boss caught management sleeping on manners. Alyssa didn't issue suspensions. She issued invitations, mandatory ones. At 2 p.m., the top 30 managers found themselves in the same training hall, usually reserved for interns. No reserved seating, no titles on name cards, just plain folding chairs and one whiteboard that read, "Respect is not a department, it's a decision." Alyssa stepped up front. "I'm not here to scold anyone," she began. "I'm here to make sure no visitor, client, or employee ever feels smaller than the building they walk into." She told them about her first job answering phones in a cubicle the size of a coat closet, how a senior partner once told her to wait outside while he discussed real business. She smiled at the memory. "I waited outside for 10 years, then I bought the door." A ripple of laughter broke the tension, the kind that comes from recognition, not comedy. She continued, "We don't grow by shame, we grow by awareness, so let's start there." For the next hour, she listened more than she spoke, managers admitting they hadn't realized how small gestures could sting, employees offering quiet suggestions for change. She wrote every idea on the board herself, neat block letters, no hierarchy. When the session ended, she said, "Accountability isn't about blame, it's about ownership. And ownership, ladies and gentlemen, is the real currency of leadership." That evening, the internal memo went out company-wide. Effective immediately, the Human First program. Every name appeared beneath it, including hers. Because as she'd told them earlier, policy without participation is just public relations. Downstairs, the same receptionist received an envelope with a handwritten note. "Thank you for reminding me why I came here. See you at the next training, AG." Inside was a voucher for professional development, not punishment. Eddie, the guard, found her later in the lobby. "Dr. Greene," he said with a grin, "folks upstairs look different already." Alyssa smiled. Change has a way of showing on people's faces before it hits the paperwork. He chuckled, "Now that's what I call real management." As she left for the night, the security lights glowed soft gold on the marble floor. No applause, no press release, just a company quietly learning how to stand taller. 2 weeks later, the building felt different. The marble still gleamed, the suits still rustled through the halls, but the air carried something lighter, like someone had finally opened a window that had been stuck for years. Alyssa arrived just after sunrise. No cameras, no announcements. She liked to see things before the workday's noise began. At the front desk, the same receptionist looked up, stood, and smiled for real this time. "Good morning, Dr. Greene, welcome back." Alyssa returned the smile. "Good morning, Angela, how training going?" "Eye-opening," Angela said. "Never realized how many times we talk before we think." Alyssa nodded. "Most of us learn manners before math. Sometimes we just forget the order." She moved through the lobby, pausing to greet employees by name. Each greeting came back warmer, steadier. Even Eddie, polishing his badge, called out, "Morning, boss. Coffee's fresh, just how you like it." She laughed. "You always remember the important details." Upstairs, the new Human First posters lined the corridor. "Respect is our baseline, every voice counts, see the person, not the position." Some thought they looked corny. Alyssa didn't mind. "Values only look corny to folks who don't live them," she'd said in the last meeting. At 9 sharp, the board gathered again. The same men who once measured her by assumption now measured her by results. Quarterly numbers were climbing, but that wasn't the slide Alyssa cared about. She brought up an employee survey, the first honest one in company history. Under culture, the rating had jumped from 62% to 89%. Under trust in leadership, the comments box was full of sentences that started with "finally." She looked around the table. "Gentlemen, I appreciate the profits, but what matters most is that people walk through our doors with their heads high." No one argued. When the meeting ended, one of the younger directors lingered. "Dr. Greene," he said, "I've been here 10 years. I've never seen folks this motivated. What's your secret?" Alyssa smiled. "Simple. When people feel seen, they start seeing the company as theirs too." He nodded slowly, the kind of nod that meant he'd be quoting her later. That evening, as the city lights came on, Alyssa stood by the window again. From this height, the streets below looked like veins of gold running through dark stone. She thought about that first morning, the cold look, the polite dismissal, the word "outside." And how somehow the best way to change a place is to walk through its doors with patience strong enough to outlast pride. Her phone buzzed, a message from the same intern who'd nearly tripped weeks before. "Thank you for what you said about breathing. I got promoted to project lead today." Alyssa typed back, "Keep breathing. You'll make it to Friday and far beyond." She set the phone down and whispered to the empty room. "Justice isn't a headline, it's a habit." Then she turned off the lights, letting the city glow behind her. No need for applause, no viral clip required. Just quiet proof that leadership done right doesn't shout. It stands steady, listens, and lets respect do the talking. If you've ever been told to wait outside, remember, sometimes the door just needs you to open it. Dignity walks in quietly, but it never leaves the same way it came.